Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call the regular monthly meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission to order for Wednesday, September 24th, 2014. And if you'd all rise for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Ms. McGill, would you call roll, please?
Chair Wiscombe.
Here.
Longstreet.
Here.
Brown. Here. Clark. Heaton. Here. Intern Rodriguez.
Here.
And Case Spear and Uribe are not present.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And a special welcome to Council Member Kathy Murillo, actually Mayor Pro Tempore. Thank you. Thanks for attending our meeting. Changes to the agenda. Ms. Rapp?
Chair Wiscombe, we would recommend that since item 3, which is the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation related to the Alameda Park Well relocation project, be taken in concert with and following the presentation by Public Works Engineering on the Alameda Park Well relocation project. So both items will be covered concurrently. You will need to make all of the recommendations as stated in your agenda, but you can make them together at one time. And we would also like to suggest, if the chair is willing, that because we have guests here today from the YMCA to make a presentation to the Commission on the Haley Street Youth Center, that we take item 5 before we take items 3 and 4.
Great. Thank you very much. Changes are noted, and that's the order we'll go in. We'll move on. Written communications. Do we have anything to discuss there, Ms. Rapp?
Sorry, no.
Okay.
Chair
And
Wiscombe.
Public comment. We're moving on to that. Is anyone here to address the Commission on any item that's not on the agenda today? Okay, seeing as we have no one, I will close public comment, and we'll move on to the Youth Council report. Mr. Rodriguez, welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. We are working on, along with the mayor, a project for her bowling campaign, which we are planning on having the 30th of October, which will consist of mayor speaking and presenting, and we'll also screen a movie. I think it's the movie Bully. At the end, we'll bring it all together with a dialogue and have people state their reactions. We're thinking about having it at San Marcos or Creo Rec Center. We're working on getting most likely San Marcos because it's a little more central. And yeah, we'll have more information to come.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. We'll move on then to the Commissioner Committee assignment report. So we'll just go down the line. Ms. Clark?
The IPM and Front Country Task Force committees haven't met last month.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Heaton?
Yeah, the Creeks Advisory Committee had a site visit for the Mason Street Bridge and Cabrillo Bridge projects with Public Works and went over the project scope and timing. Both of those scheduled to begin their first stages this fall. So it was a really informative, good site visit.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Longstreet?
The Park Foundation met this month, and we are planning the 90-plus birthday party for October 23rd. So we are looking for residents who are 90 years or older to attend the event, and we're also looking for sponsorships. I also attended the NAC retreat. The first night of a 2-night retreat, the next one will be coming up in the next week. It was very productive. All members participated, and it was very, very good. And I also went to the presentation at the Cabrillo Bathhouse. And that was, again, very well done. I'm looking forward to that project moving forward.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown?
Yes, I went to the municipal golf course meeting, and my first one. And they had a lot to talk about. Player use is down, and they want to promote to colleges and give a student discount rate to anybody that's in any college from throughout the world, which is kind of neat. They've got a lot of maintenance. They've got about 30 dead trees. They're dealing with pitch pine disease, but being pretty effective. They're fixing the ladies' restrooms, the drinking fountain, and working on the squirrel holes. And their girls' night out has been very successful. They've had 900 rounds this year, so they will continue with that.
That's great. Thank you very much. You'll be a great liaison on that committee. No, okay. I also attended the Cabrillo Bathhouse public meeting, and I thought Ms. Zachary did an excellent job with the presentation, and it was a well-attended meeting, and there was a lot of very positive and insightful public comments. So it was a great meeting. Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting was canceled, and that's pretty much it. Okay, we're going to move on to commission and staff communications. Be very special.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, officially, I would like to introduce to you our newest member of the management team, Rich Hanna. Rich has been part of the Parks and Recreation family since 1993. Over recent years especially, Rich has proven himself very, very capable and taken on great responsibilities, increasing responsibilities in a number of areas. And he will be overseeing the sports section, the tennis section, the aquatics section, of course, and the youth activities section. So with the departure of Sarah Hanna, we've kind of been shuffling some things around and reorganizing to make good programming sense. And I did want to just highlight some of Rich's strengths that will really continue to serve the Recreation Division especially, but also the department in his new role as a manager. So one of Rich's areas of strength has been in staff training. And with the aquatics programs, you can imagine what that has been a focus in depth for many years. And I think I neglected to mention, I'm sorry, Rich's whole background has been in a variety of aquatics positions, from pool lifeguard on up to being the pool manager, the aquatics assistant supervisor, the aquatics supervisor, and most recently the senior recreation supervisor overseeing aquatics, sports, and tennis. So another area that Rich has developed a very strong background in is liability and risk management, and that will serve the department very well in the future. He also has a good background in facility operations and management, which with so many different facilities, that is great experience for us to build on with all of the different interdepartmental relationships that we have, and he's proven himself very capable in developing and maintaining those relationships. And as you may already know, he has had some good experiences with project management. He is part of the Cabrillo Bathhouse project team along with Jill Zachary, so Rich will continue to play a major role with that. So we are very pleased to have Rich in this position and feel that he has great future within recreation management and perhaps the department at some point. So a young man with a lot of potential, and we look forward to exploiting and growing that potential.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Hanna, would you like to say a few words?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, first of all, thanks, Director Rapp. I feel so fortunate to be in this position. I remember standing here in 1998, being introduced as the Assistant Aquatic Supervisor. And when I first moved here in 1993, I had no idea that I'd be working for a department that's so diverse and offers so many great programs to this community. And I really think that I am a product of what Parks and Recreation does. We take young kids, myself included, we provide them with hourly positions, we work them hard, we expect a lot, we challenge them, we give them these opportunities, and then hopefully a position opens up and they get to move up inside the organization. I feel that I am well prepared to have gone on to any other position, but I'm just so elated that I could be here and continue to work for this department. I look forward to working with the Commission on big projects now that we're kind of moving in the right direction. And I've always felt a lot of strength and support from this Commission when we've been going through some really tough challenges, both budget and programmatic-wise. But I think that's what makes what we offer this community really special and great, and I'm just really excited to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome. Ms. Longstreet?
Does this mean you won't be maintaining Los Baños anymore? I think of all those years when we didn't have a person to do that, and there you would be every day maintaining the pumps.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Longstreet, hopefully not. I'm hoping that I have succeeded. I have successors that are taking care of that, but I would like to think that my skills will stay somewhat up to speed. So in an absolute emergency, if at the direction of the director, I'm sure I could help out and get the pool up and running. So thank you.
But I am really happy. I think you hit the nail on to see our staff promote from within, to watch the growth in staff and the training that's provided. And I think it speaks well of the city's programs and how they treat their employees.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the Commission, welcome and congratulations on your new position. On a personal note, I've seen you in action, and with junior lifeguards, with several other activities. You command the respect of all the participants in the program, and they just have a lot of fun and get a lot accomplished because of your abilities, and it's great to see. And you've really guided, like with the junior lifeguards, through some tough times. When Nick Johnson passed away, that was a really tough time, and I think they all got behind your leadership and really got through a difficult, sad time. And I've also watched you just have a lot of fun with them and teach them a lot of great things. So I know you're going to do a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We are in the process of backfilling underneath Rich, so we are in the process of hiring a new aquatic supervisor. So look forward to that introduction as we move forward.
Great. Thank you very much. So that concludes, Commission and staff communications. Great. Okay, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. Item number 1 is a summary of council actions. Ms. Rapp, did you have anything to add to that, or does the commissioners have any questions on that? That's in your packet. Okay. We'll move on to approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on Wednesday, August 27th, 2014. Does anyone have any comments or changes, or do I hear a motion for approval?
I move we approve the minutes of August 27th, 2014.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Probably Miss Brown did it. Yeah, first I couldn't tell. It was in my ears at the same time. So, okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that carries. Good. Okay, now we are going to move on to agenda item number 5, and which is here, which is the Haley Street Youth Center presentation. Welcome, Mr. Alvarado.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Wiscombe and Commissioners. Mark Alvarado, Senior Supervisor for Neighborhood and Outreach Services, Parks and Recreation. Excuse my voice. It's been under the weather the last couple of days, but I wanted to come in and do this introduction because I've worked with the Channel Islands YMCA from the onset on the development of this agreement, and it's really exciting to us to be in partnership with an organization with such a huge history, not only in our community but nationwide, internationally, what the YMCA does for families and for children. And so with that, I want to talk just a little bit about the process and how we got here today and hearing their presentation. So as you know, the Haley Street Youth Center is one of our facilities under Parks and Recreation that we lease out, and we lease out to nonprofit organizations that provide services to families and children. And prior to this agreement, it was home to Primo Boxing, and Primo Boxing built a legacy out of that building, serving over 20 years, serving vulnerable kids, helping them train with professional boxing after school, tutoring, mentorship, and just a sense of place for kids in the neighborhood. So that was kind of the legacy, what we were looking at when we started to develop this process for the building. And if you don't know exactly where the building is, it's at 701 East Haley Street, right on the corner there. And so we went into a competitive application process, and it wasn't very robust in terms of applications that we got, but it was competitive. And, and the decision wasn't just, we just snapped our fingers and said, yes, we're going to go with this. We did a lot of debating inside, and we did a lot of fact finding and checking to see whether or not who was going to be the best fit for the neighborhood. Because really what we wanted was an organization who was going to come in and provide that safe haven for young children in the neighborhood. And it's a beautiful asset right there, but it's also adjacent to Santa Barbara Junior High, Ortega Park, and so we knew whoever could come in there could also utilize those other resources within the community. And so the building itself is 1,500 square feet, and the rent is a monthly rent of $1,785. And so we've entered into a 3-year agreement with the Channel Islands YMCA, and I'm just really excited to hear their presentation and to be a support to them so that they can do the good things. And I failed to mention that the Boys and Girls Club is just down the street also too there as well. And also the Girls Inc. And there's just a lot of good things going on in that neighborhood. And we just felt that this group could come in and really what I felt personally and in my discussions with them was that the services that they provide out at Hitchcock and the Montecito, that this was going to be a satellite for those same type of services. It could be a springboard so kids could go to camp. They could go into different types of opportunities and activities that there wouldn't be opportunity for otherwise. And so we really felt that was a stronghold in order for us to really cement the deal. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to Vince Ucolano. I believe I got it right.
Yeah.
And Vince is with the YMCA, and he's going to go ahead and take over and do the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Ucolano.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mayor Pro Tem, and Mark. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. We're here today to present what we've been working on since we entered the agreement with the city a little over 2 months ago. And we put together a PowerPoint to kind of walk you through our vision, our progress, and our future plans at the Haley Street Youth Center. So originally, when we got an opportunity to move in, and we took a look at the community and the opportunity that was there in front of us, we got very excited. And what we wanted to do is really focus on the things that we do well, and that's youth development and providing opportunities for youth, teens, and families that sometimes just aren't there in the community. So our vision moving forward with this project for East Santa Barbara is just to focus in on those things. A big part of it is how we manifest our movement and our impact through wellness classes and talking about not just physical wellness, but emotional wellness, social wellness, spiritual wellness, as far as just making people better at what they do. As we started to go through it, we wanted to bring in a third party to do a needs assessment. And at that point, we brought in Netzel Grigsby, which we'll talk a little bit about, who really interacted with a lot of the stakeholders and community leaders and nonprofit organizations in East Santa Barbara to really ask them a bunch of questions around what truly are the needs of that community and how can the YMCA best serve, or how can your information best put us in a position to serve. So we started with that, and we kind of came to the understanding that there was going to be a lot of shared collaboration with the use of Parks and Recs Commission, with the schools. We've made some really great relationships inside of Santa Barbara Middle School. We know Franklin. We know some of the movers and shakers at Franklin. They gave us really good feedback on what their students needed. And there is also many nonprofits in the area that also share a common desire to serve youth, teen, and families in East Santa Barbara. So we got their input along the way. And what we've kind of came up with the information that's came back is certain programs that we're going to focus on. The first of which are youth, teen, and family group exercise classes. When we looked at what a lot of these stakeholders were talking about was these kids and these families did not have access to wellness-type programs, and that was a huge concern inside that community. So we said, this is what we do great. So we talked a lot about spin classes and introducing that community to what spin is and how fun spin classes can be and the benefits from taking a spin class. Zumba's been one of our biggest classes at the Hitchcock branch, and we felt like we can duplicate that down there. And then a family cardio dance class was another feedback. Families wanted to do things together, and one of the great things that we do is that we can package a program that not only gets the 12-year-olds moving, but it gets the 35, 40-year-old, the parents, even the grandparents in dancing, moving around. Physical and athletic training for teens was a huge thing that came back also. So we wanted to focus on teaching teens how to properly lift weights, how to properly go through a workout, some of the benefits in that, how to use equipment. Youth sports. We found a huge gap once we started looking at the needs assessment in East Santa Barbara that kids just didn't have access to youth sports, to a basketball court, to a soccer training program, to flag football, and not all kids were getting there. So we figured we can address that through our youth sports program that we have up at the Hitchcock branch and just duplicate that down at Haley Youth Center. Teen wellness and strength classes, civic literacy was another big part of it. Homework assistance. That was a big deal for some of the parents and some of the stakeholders, and we're prepared to go in there and not only deal with wellness and stuff like that, but we also wanted to have those relationships with those kids and families where they can come in and we can continue education. Once the bell rings at 12:30 and they come to the Y, their education's not going to stop. We're going to have staff on site to help them with their math homework, to help them with English composition, all that stuff. And then ultimately, we hope it wraps into like a community service where people love that youth center so much that we can go out into the community and start doing programs and services for the members of that community, which is something we do at the Hitchcock branch. So our progress, like I said before, Netzel Grigsby came in. They performed the needs assessment. We started with a needs assessment steering committee, which we put together leaders from the community. We had YMCA members. We had YMCA staff members. And we all went out and tried to pull the best and the brightest from the community. And we really wanted to engage them and questions to find out what the needs were. We ended up with a really great group that included people from Santa Barbara Unified School District. We had a couple of school board members. We had local nonprofits be part of the needs assessment, the people from the Milpas Community Association, which was great, and smaller community organizers and other nonprofits that maybe don't get the recognition that everyone else does, but their voices heard also. They're compiling the data. We should have everything back September 26th, and we can send that on to this commission so you guys can look through it and see the same thing we're seeing. There was one point that also came back during the initial needs assessment is that all of our material needed to be bilingual. So we have completely put that into our plan for marketing and communications to the folks in the community. They wanted a long-term commitment. A lot of the feedback was a lot of nonprofits come to East Santa Barbara and they over-promise and under-deliver. And I think that's probably a common sense because you guys are all shaking. I'm sure you've heard that. That really sat with us and that resonated. And we wanted to make it clear that, yes, we have a 3-year agreement with the city, but we are committed 100% to be here for the long haul. And we're not taking federal money, we're not taking state money, we're not taking county money. We're doing this on our own because we want to be here. And it really opened some eyes because sometimes people go into the community and just they overpromise on what they're going to deliver, and we told them, "Hey, you tell us on what to deliver, and we're gonna bring that to you." So that was a good give and take between the needs assessment group and our staff. And our program ideas, it just kind of confirmed to us that we were on the right track. When we had this vision of what we wanted to bring, when we heard from the community, boy, we were just checking things off the box because we felt like we can deliver on those types of programs. Now the exciting part, right? We start talking about our future and what we want to accomplish while we're down there. Our future plans, we have this deep desire to build a long-standing relationship with that community. We believe it can be mutual benefit. We think that both the Channel Islands YMCA and the Santa Barbara Family YMCA is committed, and our board members and our volunteers are committed to making this work. They're so excited about this opportunity that it's really built up a lot of excitement behind what we're doing. And ultimately, we want to prove to this commission, and we want to prove to the city that you guys made the right choice and that your trust in us didn't go unwarranted. We really want to deliver on this amazing opportunity that you're giving us. Long-term sustainability, not only financial, but just programmatical and just being there for the community. That's really important. We feel that, like I said before, just the community said time and time again that people have just missed the mark on that, other nonprofits, and we didn't want to come in there and do that. Impact and influence and structured growth. Using wellness to make the community a better place. And there's many different facets, like I said, of wellness. And we want to use all three of those to move our, to grow our impact and to grow our influence in the community. Structured growth. We don't want to promise the moon and not deliver. So we want to grow into this slowly and surely. And ultimately, we want it to be a place where everyone truly is welcome. In going through the research and just talking to people in the community, we wanted to make sure that we understood what they were saying and be able to deliver on it. But one of the things that came back is that we do have a monumental task of maintaining a facility and programs that's relevant to the Hispanic and Latino community, but to make it a place for everyone else. Because one of the things from the needs assessment is, boy, that's a pretty vibrant community down there. At first blush, you'll look and you'll say, it's a Hispanic Latino community. But when you start talking to the people and when you walk the streets and you do the needs assessment, it's probably the most diverse part of town that we have here in Santa Barbara. And we want to make sure that we're intentional with our programming. We understand that a big part of that community is Hispanic and Latino. We need to have programs and services that address that. But we also want to make sure our doors are open to everybody and that everyone feels welcome and that it's actually a mirror of the community. our goals, obviously, is for the neighborhood to feel well, and that's physically well, socially well, emotionally well. We want to add culture and value to a thriving neighborhood. I mean, East Santa Barbara's got it right. There's a lot of good things going on in East Santa Barbara, and we just want to add to that. We want to be part of this. We want to get in on the ground floor because it's going to be great, and we see a lot of great things happening down there. The positive impact of volunteerism and giving back to the Y. We want our message to resonate with that community. We want people to want to volunteer. We want people to get involved. We want people to be a member of that Haley Street Youth Center and then open the door and go out in the community and do great things. And if we feel like we can accomplish that, that would be great. And ultimately for all youth, teen, and families to feel welcome, valued, and then challenged. That's the final piece, right? A lot of people feel valued. A lot of people feel loved. We want to challenge folks. We want to challenge folks to be well. We want to challenge folks to go out in the community and do great things. And we feel like we can through this process. And that was the day we got the keys. We were very excited, so we took a picture in front of it. Since then, we've kind of trimmed the bushes and cleaned the front. But that picture really brings a smile to my face because we worked really hard to get this. And when we got the keys, we were just so excited, and we started dreaming about the future. And the process kind of speaks for itself, and we can't wait. I have some very exciting dates to share with you. We are going to have our open house October 13th through the 17th. We're looking at hours of operation between 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. That's what we're going to start with, and as we grow, we will make adjustments to it. But during the open house, we're going to invite community members to come on in, take a look around. We're going to do some wellness lectures. We're going to do some spin classes for free. We're going to show people, what the building is going to be all about, and we're going to talk about programming and opportunities for them to join. We have a VIP and donors event October the 18th from 5:30 to 7. Invitations will be going out, and we just want local leaders and community organizers from East Santa Barbara to come in and take a look around and just see what we're doing, and it's just another way to reach out and to start to build collaborations with other folks in the community. And then our grand opening, which we're really super excited about, is going to be October 20th. That's from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. We have Bronco Radio coming and doing a live broadcast from the Haley Street Youth Center. We're going to have a big barbecue. We're going to have open classes all day. We're going to kind of just show the folks what we're going to be doing on a daily basis and invite people to join in. We're going to have some raffles. We're going to be giving away some memberships, opportunities like that for everyone to kind of learn a little more. And then our first day where programs start, where we all take a deep breath and say, this is for real, we're doing it, is October 21st, and we're going to open at 1 p.m. And with our standard schedule, we're going to start with homework assistance for the first hour and a half, and then we're going to go into some teen wellness classes. We're going to do some spins, some group acts, and then we're going to invite families in after 4 p.m. to do family Zumba and weight training and some of our youth sports programs. So we're very excited about it, and we can take some questions if you have any.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was great.
Sure.
I will open it up to the commission. Does anyone have comments, questions? Yes, Ms. Clark.
I met you a couple years ago.
Yeah, at camp. Yes.
Being the camp nurse for your kids up
That's
at Lake
right.
Sequoia. So I've had a one-on-one experience with seeing kids go from not wanting to be at camp to being fired up over citizenship through your Character Counts program, and I'm excited to see that you're going to be doing that here.
Great. We missed you at Camp Fox this summer. We I know you couldn't make it with your schedule,
I
but
was asked at the very last minute,
yeah.
But
yeah.
next year
So
I'm
next
there.
summer, you got to come out. That'd be great.
Anyone? Yes, Mr. Heaton. We'll just go down the line.
Yeah,
maybe.
say thank you for sharing, and it's amazing how much you've accomplished in such a short period, and I'm really impressed and excited, through your approach through the community collaboration effort and enthusiasm. It's contagious. So look forward
great.
to it.
Thank you.
Hi. I know this is the Haley Street Youth Center,
Yes.
but there are several hours in the day there where you may be able to serve another large population in the area, and that's seniors. Right up the road, you have a lot of low-income senior housing, and that's another group that you might be able to program in as you develop your programming. The other group that I have a concern for is moms and babies. There's very few classes for new moms and young children, and I know you provide some at the Y, but I think having those within a neighborhood would make a big difference. And we have, again, quite a bit of housing in that area with young families, and I know more is even planned in the future. You do have, I understand the limits of parking and things
We do, right.
at that facility. Can you talk a little bit about cost? Because
Sure.
for this neighborhood, that's going to be an issue, and probably a large part of your success is balancing that.
Right. Yes. Through the needs assessment, that was something that we paid special attention to. We spent a whole roundtable session, by about a 15-minute segment of it, talking about, what would be the price to charge? Should we charge a price? Should we not charge a price? And we kind of deliberated back and forth. We took that information and we put it back out to that needs assessment. There's going to be a small membership charge per month, and we don't have the prices yet, but where they're going to be structured has been completely managed by that needs assessment and by feedback from members. We're not going to commit to prices quite yet until we have the complete needs assessment back, but it's going to be it'll be well within the mark that they've given us. And as a nonprofit charity, we do have money set aside for financial aid and for scholarships, so no one will be turned away if they cannot pay. So it'll be, yes, we're a membership-based organization, but we also have the financial aid and the scholarships to kind of be the safety net for folks who cannot afford it.
Right, because I don't think everything needs to be free. I
Right.
think sometimes people have more investment when they pay what they can afford. It's just keeping it affordable.
Right.
So we look forward and wish you much success, because I think the neighborhood benefits by every new program. And I don't think by any stretch can the city provide everything.
Right.
So we need to work with all of our partners. So
Right.
thank you.
Some of the needs assessment, when it came back, a vast majority of the folks who says you should charge for these programs, the type of programs that you're going to deliver, this community can pay for it. They kind of threw up their hands and say, listen, we can pay for stuff. We want to pay for stuff if there's value to it. And when we started talking about the type of programs that we were going to deliver on, they're like, that's something we would pay for. So we kind of worked with them on a price point, and we do have the financial aid and the scholarships to kind of be the safety net. So.
Great. Ms. Brown, and then we'll get to you.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the neighborhood. I
you.
run the Boys and Girls Club on the east side, and we welcome you and look forward to partnering with you and doing some stuff together.
Yes.
So we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heard great things, and all the feedback we've had from the East Side Boys and Girls Club has just been top notch. We're really excited to be partners with you guys.
I know Joan Price from the Montecito, and we've done some things together. So we love YMCA.
Yeah,
So
it's going to be great. It's going to be a good
it'll be great.
partnership.
Yeah.
Mr. Rodriguez?
I'd just like to say I was very sad to see Primo go, but it was a place where I felt actually comfortable working out.
Right.
But I'm excited to see what you guys have in store for teens like myself.
Great. Thank you.
Great. I love the process that you went through. I think it's great, and you included small business owners, which is, I think key to that area too, as well as residents and other stakeholders. And I like the focus on wellness, and I think, and the families doing things together. I think those things go a long way towards really improving lives of the people that live in our communities and opening their eyes to a lot of possibilities. So So that's very exciting. The needs assessment, the results, did you say September 26th?
26, right?
Okay, because I'll be anxious to hear about that. And I think the rest of my questions were answered. I know I was concerned about the cost also, and I'm glad that you will provide financial assistance
Yes.
to people that need it. So I think that's pretty much it, and thank you very much for the presentation, and we'll look forward to the open house. I'm sure you'll see a lot of the commissioners there at the open house.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and
Yes.
Commissioners, just as a follow-up to let you know that we will, similar to many of the other organizations that we lease space to, receive an annual report that will come to you on the operation and successes of the YMCA over each year that they're there. I know that that's always important to you. You do have the option of, and as they do, coming and giving the report in person and sharing what they're doing and the services that they're providing. So you'll continue to receive that information.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ukalana. So, and I just want to welcome our interim city administrator manager to our meeting, Mr. Paul Casey. Welcome. Nice to see you here. Okay, we're going to move on now to agenda item number 4, Alameda Park Well Relocation Project.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Wiscombe, Commission members. My name is Philip Maldonado. I'm a project engineer with the Public Works Department, and I am responsible for the development of the Alameda Park Well Relocation Project. So I'm just going to give you a brief summary of the project itself, and we can discuss further once we're complete. So why is this well important? Well, as many of you know, with the drought, we rely more and more on our groundwater sources to help supplement our overall water supply. This Alameda well connects directly into our water distribution system, making it an important source for the surrounding community. And relocating the well within Alameda Park allows us to reuse much of our existing infrastructure, helping reduce the overall cost of replacing this well. So in general, our project objectives are, put simply, to relocate an existing groundwater well within Alameda Park. We've been asked to develop this project in a rapid manner, of course, given our current drought situation. And as with any project, collaboration, primarily with our stakeholders, is extremely important in making sure all the project requirements are met. So what goes into the development? So working with a design contractor, along with park staff, we've developed a well siting study in order to determine the most appropriate site for relocating this well. We've received permission from the state in order to maintain the same footprint of the existing well in order to minimize the impact to the park itself. And per park staff recommendation, we've contracted the services of a certified arborist in order to develop a tree survey as well as a tree protection plan in order to protect the existing trees throughout the project. So the image you see here is, of course, attachment 1 from the packet that you are all provided. It is from the well siting study. It is a map showing the existing well as well as the location of the new well. You should note that the new well is approximately 100 feet from the existing well, putting it roughly in the same general area of the park. This image here is the summary from the arborist report, and you can see the entire the report in its entirety within attachment number 2 of your packet. It is actually incorporated into the landscape plans themselves. It should also be noted that attachment 3 are photos of the general area, helping to give you some more familiarity with the general site where this project is taking place. Now, this report was submitted to the Street Tree Advisory Committee and helped provide the basis for for their recommendations. So how is this project being developed? Well, once the new location was determined, we began full force into the design preparation and have moved this project forward. The project itself was reviewed by the Water Commission on July 14th. We then took it to the Street Tree Advisory Commission on August 7th. And we've also have had review by the Historic Landmarks Commission on September 10th. We are now presenting to this body for final review as well as Building and Safety for their review. So long as we maintain this project development or this progress, we are tentatively scheduled to begin construction in January of 2015. So the collaboration for this project, we've worked very closely with park staff in order to garner their support for the overall design concept. We've taken the STAC and HLC recommendations and incorporated them into the design plans that are in your packet. We've worked, engineering staff as well, worked closely with park staff along with the city attorney's office in order to develop the findings that are presented as part of the report that has been submitted. And to put it simply, the general intent of these plans really is just the restoration of all impacted areas to a level that is equal to or improved from what currently exists. And with that, I just want to thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Downey here because he's going to discuss the STAC recommendations in more detail. Unless we want to take questions now, I'll hold off to the end.
Thank you, Mr. Maldonado. Does anyone have any questions?
Chair Wiscombe, if I could add just a little more background, and then before you go to questions and before Mr. Downey walks you through the tree plan. So because we have some new commissioners, I wanted to provide just a little bit more background. So what you have in your staff report is a number of recommendations, and in particular for findings that you are making that are required in the city's municipal code because of language in the city's charter, which very specifically dedicates city parkland for park and recreation purposes. And so to have a utility like a well, and we can all agree wells are really important, especially these days when we're very sensitive to drought conditions, it does take a number of findings to make that correlation that it should actually be placed in a city park. This is not the only well that we have in a city park. But that is why you have those specific findings, and that's why you're being asked to, as part of this project approval, make these findings. And these findings will go to City Council with your recommendation when the project is approved and construction goes forward.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions before we go to Mr. Downey, or should we hear the whole? Yes, Mr. Heaton, do you want to wait, or you want to? Okay. Why don't we go to Mr. Downey, and then we'll open it up.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, my part of the presentation to talk about the STAC recommendation, Street Advisory Committee recommendations. This is an action item for you as well. So the committee at their August 7th meeting reviewed the plans and the arborist report. The project is proposing removal or relocation of 5 trees. The Street Advisory Committee went out to the site and looked at those trees and the situations. There are 2 giant bird of paradise that the project at that time was recommending to relocate. 1 dead fan palm to remove. 1 Dracaena Draco tree that was proposed for relocation. And I'm sorry, I'm missing one. I'm sorry, Cordyline australis, Dracaena is the common name, and one king palm for relocation. Street Tree Advisory Committee looked at those trees and the report, and they determined that it would be extremely risky to relocate the palms given the use in the park. The giant bird of paradise are difficult to move. They're heavy, and if you move them with the trunks, that's quite onerous. Suggestion was made to remove the trunks and leave the small pups and let those grow to be large trees again. But with the adjacent Kids World, concern was we see youth all the time climbing through those trees, and the committee didn't feel that it would be successful to have those trees start from pups. So their recommendation there is to replace the trees rather than relocate them. They reviewed the king palm. It is also nearing its age out for its lifespan, and it has a trunk defect that has a narrow spot in the trunk. So the chances of success for relocation of that are quite low. And the condition of the Cordyline australis, the Dracaena, is declining. It's not doing all that well. The concern about relocating that one is when you relocate a tree, you stress that tree out. And if you try to do that with a declining tree, its chance of success is really low. So they reviewed that. Their recommendation is to approve the 5 removals on the condition that 2 giant bird of paradise go in as replacements. Those bird of paradise would be one that is 3 trunks, one that is 5 trunks, and at least half the size of the existing giant bird of paradise. One Brahia edulis, I think. No, I'm sorry, Butea capitata to replace the dead phoenix-style palm, and 2 king palms to be placed in that same planter where the well is going. The item, when it went to Historic Landmarks Commission, the Historic Landmark Commission commented that they would like to see that Cordyline australis relocated. The plan you have in front of you shows, if that is your action, where it would be relocated to. Both the committee and staff don't support the relocation of that tree because it's unlikely to be successful. So the recommendation, staff and the committee's recommendation to you is to approve the 5 removals on the condition that the aforementioned replacements go in and not relocate any of the trees.
And to be clear, that is what your plan has currently. So the plan that is submitted is consistent with the staff and STAC recommendations.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, one clarification on that. The plan does show the relocation of the Dracaena, the Cordyline australis. The committee's recommendation is not to relocate that tree, but to replace it.
Is that, Mr. Downey, is that a condition of HLC's approval, or was that a comment?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, the HLC commented on the plan itself, but the tree is in your jurisdiction for a decision.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
If I might, before the commission goes to any further discussions or questions, I think it's important if Mr. Maldonado would at least go back to the slide which shows the well siting, and I think it's important to at least talk the commission through what's involved with your project. they have the plans, but I think you need to walk them through what's being removed, relocated, replaced.
Absolutely.
And probably with some emphasis on the sound walls and things like that are part of the project.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as you see, this is just a orthographic photo of the site where the project will be taking place. The plans that are before you as attachment 2 center on this central planter area where the new well will be located. Around this central planter area, or around the new well construction location, there will be approximately 10,000 square feet of area blocked off by a sound wall where the construction work will actually occur. And that will take up the majority of this quadrant of Alameda Park during the drilling of the new well. The trees that Mr. Downey was discussing are the ones most adjacent to where this new well location will be. So there are 5 trees within this half of the central planter that will be removed, and as Mr. Downey commented, 1 will actually be replaced, and then all of the recommendations that the STAC committee made for replacement will actually be set within this central planter. So the relocation is actually additional to their recommendations, on top of the fact that they also recommended just simply removing it. So the construction access to the construction site will be from Santa Barbara Street, which is the lower street you see in this picture here, and will occur through a small corridor into the sound wall. For any reference, if any of the commission members were able to see the corporation yard construction, the sound wall will be very similar to that, and the access will be just a single portal for construction traffic to go in and out of. The sound wall, as with the corp yard area, the sound wall will be 24 feet in height. And will contain any of the noise that is generated from that construction activity. Any of the areas impacted, as discussed in my presentation, that are impacted by this construction will be replaced to a status that is commensurate with what it is existing. Is there anything else?
Are there any walkways?
The only walkway that will be impacted will be along Santa Barbara Street throughout the duration of the project, because that will be the corridor for traffic. The walkway connecting or nearest between the work site and the restroom facilities will be intermittently impacted when the pipeline connection is made, because the backside of the restroom facility is the existing infrastructure for controlling the water flow from the groundwater well.
And will you have temporary construction fencing? The areas that are outside of the sound wall, there's some trenching going on and stuff like that. Will you have temporary construction fencing up there when that occurs?
When that occurs, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And commissioners, because this does cordon off a portion of Alameda Park from public use, we did check with staff, and there are no special events scheduled during that time period, and so it should not have an impact to anything other than the casual park user and people in the neighborhood.
And what's the duration of the construction?
About 4 months.
4 months. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. I appreciate the additional information. I think that's really helpful. Okay, I'm going to open it up to the commission for any additional questions or comments. Does anyone have? Did you have something, Mr. Heaton?
Thank you. Some of my questions were already addressed, so glad that I waited. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about why the well relocation is needed. I read that it was taking in sand and how the soil is different in this new location, or, so what the need is and what's done to ensure it.
Absolutely. It primarily, Chairwoman Wiscombe, Commission Member, Heaton, thank you. The existing well is over 24 years old, and it had reached the end of its useful life. And part of the reason we know that is because it started producing sand from the lower portions of the groundwater well, it started doing this after an attempted rehabilitation of the well. So the structural integrity of the well actually was compromised, and we consider the well mostly failed at this point. It is no longer producing water. And so that is the major impetus for replacing it and continuing to utilize the existing infrastructure.
And then just a little bit more on the site location. It's 100 feet away in the trees versus a site that wasn't in the trees. I mean, what went into that choice?
Yes, absolutely. In working with park staff, we did not want to encumber any additional open space within the park. The current location of the well is in a planter area. There are trees surrounding it, and is much nearer to Kids World playground. This actually moves it away from the playground, puts it more in the central open space, and by putting it in the planter, we do not take any more of that usable space away.
Okay. Ms. Clark, did you have something? Yes.
In addition to the water from the well going back to the park, what other parts of our community does it serve? Where does it go?
The well connects directly into the distribution system along Mitchell-Torrena Street, and as with all of the rest, the remaining distribution system, it feeds all of the users within that area. So I say it's a supplement to our overall water supply. So the fact that we are able to continue that supply unmitigated is helped in a large part by making sure this well is functional.
Ms. Longstreet, did you have something?
Yeah. We have some replacements going in. What kind of timing will we be looking at for those, since we've really stopped planting new trees? So how are we doing with that?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Longstreet, the project's starting in January. Our hope is that we get some rainfall this winter, and if that's the case and it's sufficient, by the time the landscaping would be installed, our hope is that the drought declaration will be lifted at that point. If it's not, we do have irrigation going to all these new plantings, which is in addition to the existing irrigation in the park. This is a section of the park that is already being irrigated, and so it wouldn't necessarily be an increase in irrigation, significant increase in irrigation.
Okay, so my point was, so the restoration will happen in a timely fashion, and we won't have a large piece of Alameda Park kind of disrupted. Good.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm not sure that, I think you've answered most of mine. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation and the answers to all the questions, Mr. Maldonado. Okay, so we have in front of us findings. We have their A, B, and C, and there's all sorts of parts to them. They relate to our municipal code section 28.37.025 and also to the city charter section 520. And we need to decide if the Alameda Park well relocation project is compatible with the use and character of Alameda Park in relation to our municipal code and our city charter. So I don't know how we should go there first, and then we'll go to the tree items. So does anyone have any comments or want to make a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay.
That we concur with the recommendations in 4A, B, 1 through 6, and C, 1, and make those findings pursuant to the city charter. I think that's enough, isn't it? Then, okay.
Okay. Do we have a second to the motion? Okay. Ms. Brown seconded it. Good. I just would make sure, so when you say C1, that's parts A, B, C, and D. Under C1, A, B, C, and D. Okay, yeah, just
At least C1,
that
yes.
clarification. Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? No. Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we're going to move on to agenda item number 3, which is the tree removal request in relation to the well relocation project. And does anyone have any questions on that or comments? Do I hear him?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr.
So,
Heaton.
This would be contingent upon final approval of the well project for city, because it's going to city council. Is that correct?
So I'm Commissioner Heaton. I'm not sure that I understand your question. You would be making and you would be approving this tree plan as it's been discussed and as it's outlined in your report. That is on the assumption that the project is going forward. If the project does not go forward, no trees are changed. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, going forward as proposed.
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion? Well, I would. Okay, that's fine.
I'll make a motion that we concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation that the trees be removed contingent upon the approval of the Alameda Well project as stated, and replacements as stated.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second that.
Okay. Ms. Clark seconded it. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to move on to agenda item number 6. That's right, yeah. Which is the 6-year capital improvement program. Ms. Zachary, welcome.
Chair Wiscombe, members of the commission. With today's presentation, I want to just briefly review the purpose of the capital improvement program, talk a little bit about projects we've completed and ones that are currently underway, begin a discussion of some of the key considerations we see as we develop the new 6-year CIP, have that discussion with the commission. You will be considering the CIP, which we call it for short, at your next meeting. You also have a site visit tour that'll be planned for October 11th. So consider this the beginning of a discussion. That's why there's no action on today's agenda. And I'll go over some of those next steps when I'm done the presentation. So to begin, especially for our new commissioners, the capital improvement program is required by the city's charter. So it's for the whole city. We just have our piece of the pie. And its intent is to establish a comprehensive list of planned and projected projects, and those that we need and those that we see in the future. In the CIP, to the extent possible, we consider the timeline for design, permitting, and construction. There is a focus on the first 2 years of the CIP since the city adopts a 2-year financial plan. And that's particularly important for departments that are funded through the general fund for its capital, unlike water resources, for example, that comes through water rates. That's what funds their projects. Ours are based on the general fund. And projecting out any further than 2 years is really infeasible, and there's way more need than there are resources to meet those needs. So we also prioritize our projects in 2-year segments. But we do want to know over 6 years, and sometimes it's really just throwing stuff out there because it needs to stay on the books, where we think we should be going if, for some reason we got $67 million, which was the total of our CIP at the last 2-year go-around. And it's probably more than that if you really, really thought about all of the different things we could do throughout the community for parks and recreation if we really wanted to think big. So in the last 2 years, this being the second year of a 2-year cycle, we were very fortunate that the City Council began to reallocate some significant funds towards our capital projects. In fiscal year 13, some of you may remember that we were doing our last project with grant funds, and that was the Mesa Lane Steps, and we had essentially a balance of 0. So what we're working on today, we couldn't have foreseen 3 years ago, so we're very fortunate for that. As a result of the fact that there's been limited capital funds through the economic downturn, we really focused our projects on safety, on getting back on track with some of our playground replacements, beginning to look at our irrigation systems. We have irrigation systems that are over 30 years old in many of our parks. Restroom renovation's always been something that we've done over time. It's mostly been grant funded. So sort of looking at should the general fund support that. New park development, that came along in December of last year, and we're working on those 2 projects. And then looking at sort of facility renovation, and then making sure we stay in line with ADA regulatory improvements, particularly focused on our aquatics programs. Although, as we do improvements in our parks and our recreation facilities, we do bring things up to ADA standards as part of the project. So briefly, just want to review some of the projects we've completed. We completed the Chase Palm Park Playground this calendar year. That's something that we'd been hoping to do for a long time. It was first installed in 1998, so it was 16 years old by the time it got replaced. A little long in the tooth for our playground replacement schedule. In this project, we also were able to actually expand the play area to be able to better meet the needs of 2 to 5-year-olds. And then in this back area, as you can see, we have the mural in the back was repainted, and that was done with Arts Alliance students. So it was a great partnership of different parks and recreation programs, and really brought a lot of value to the park. Shoreline Park safety improvements. Remember the day when the slide in the cliff road? Well, we had a few final things we had to get done, some new fencing to install, and then the favored whale tail actually broke off last summer, just decided it was going to quit. So we were able to finish that this year and replace it with a new whale tail. Park irrigation, I mentioned. We put the first underground irrigation system in Ambassador Park, one of our oldest parks this year, and that actually points out some of the challenges we have in some of our park areas. This is a historic park. It has a lot of different things going on, and so you have to figure out how you squirrel something like this in. This was completed in July. We also replaced the irrigation system at Willow Glen Park, and in fact, we made a lot of improvements at that park, and this photograph doesn't really do justice to everything that we did. But I think it had been since the late 1960s since the fencing and the benches had been replaced. We repaired concrete. We put in a new drinking fountain, which also has a little fountain for dogs. You will notice here on the right, we replaced the backstop. We did all of those sort of safety fix-it items that we'd wanted to do for a long time and frankly didn't have the resources to do it. Alameda Park, you were just talking about Alameda Park. We renovated that restroom. We've had people over the years say, when are you getting to this restroom? We're like, don't know. We were able to complete that as well as bring it up to ADA compliance. Kids World renovation, we started that. We continued working on it, I should say. Finished the structural assessment, which told us that essentially with some repair and replacement and bringing things up to code, we don't have to tear it down and start all over, which was the answer that we were looking for. Right now, we're finishing our accessibility analysis and then looking at ways that we have to address play safety features that we have. But in the last fiscal year, the City Council allocated funds to fully fund this project. And we had, I believe, $60,000 and then zero 5 years ago for this project. So we've gone from zero to nothing, and we intend to complete this project this fiscal year. Cabrillo Ball Field renovation, we started a discussion with the Commission and community stakeholders, and again, that's something that's going to start this fall. We'll be back before you probably in December or January to reinitiate sort of the scoping community discussion, but that project's now fully funded as well. We started out with $75,000 to do storm drain improvements. And then we got a little bit more money to do something else. Well, the City Council's allocated enough money for us to really look at this project. And for our new commissioners, this is essentially the active ball field area, which is highly used and very much valued. And what we're looking at is what can we do with this segment of the park to enhance recreation opportunities. And we've had different people come forward with different ideas as to what we might do that. We need to pick that conversation up, conduct a feasibility assessment, and then move forward with planning and design for that project. That is something you'll be seeing in the very near future. Bass Street Pocket Park, you're well aware of this. We had it on your agenda last month, and we got our ABR final approval. The project is now out to bid, and we hope hopefully to have bids in, I believe, in the next 10 days and be able to move that forward. And then the Cabrillo Pavilion and Bathhouse, we're going to hold off on giving you more of a detailed presentation. We were just at the Historic Landmarks Commission for our third concept review today, and we'll be going back in another month, but we're thinking that in your October meeting, we would be, in fact, that will be right after HLC concept review again, be able to give you more detail of what the design looks like and what the interior looks like. We had a very successful community meeting. We assume we counted over 100 names on our sign-in sheet, and so we know there are a few people who didn't sign in, and hope to continue to have ongoing dialogue on the project as it moves forward. So that's trucking along, and we'll give you more information at your next meeting. Pool ADA regulatory improvements. New lift systems were installed at Los Baños this last year, and then our next location is the Oak Park wading pool. Essentially, we have the design moving forward with having a beach entry to meet the new accessibility standards for wading pools. That's something that we'll be working on this year. It's funded in our capital program. East Beach Playground, that's one of the things we asked the City Council right before they adopted the budget, if there's any additional funds, what would be our priority, and our priority would be installing a new playground at East Beach. This is a schematic of what the design looks like. We actually have Historic Landmarks Commission approval for the project, so we got that 2 weeks ago. We should be going out to bid for the equipment in the next week or so. We need to still get a coastal development permit, but we're hoping that bidding and the permitting process occur concurrently. One of our objectives with this, since the Commission hasn't seen it, is you can see this concrete curb right along here. That's actually the edge of the old wading pool that was first constructed in 1927, right next to the pavilion and bathhouse. The wading pool itself was demolished in 1979, and that's when the first play structure was placed in the former wading pool. Through our research on the pavilion, we actually determined that the first play structure was placed on East Beach in front of the pavilion in 1928. So there's always been something for kids to play on at East Beach, and this will be our latest iteration of it. So we have 3 pieces of equipment rather than just 2. We currently have 1 here and 1 here. So we hope to refill the space and enhance that for families. In a perfect world, we will have this installed before the end of the calendar year. So it doesn't have to wait for the renovation of the building to occur. We're taking it in advance of that, and City Council approved funding for us to move forward with this. Stevens Park Playground we'll be working on this year as well. That's a playground that's scheduled for removal. It's actually by the same manufacturer as the one at East Beach, so we're concerned that we'll have sort of a structural failure. So it's coming out and a new one's going in. We don't have the design yet for this playground, but we're working on it. And then municipal tennis facility. There's been a lot of discussion about how we can enhance this facility. In our capital program, we actually call for sort of a major site renovation, looking at the original municipal stadium here, looking at all of the grounds around the facility, opportunities to enhance lighting so we have more nighttime court playing. In the short term, we have a small amount of funds in our capital program to look at installing a playground in this location that would serve families sort of in the Lower East Side neighborhood. We have enough funding that Council approved to basically take us through design and permitting, and Councilmember White is looking at the opportunity for doing some community fundraising around building a new playground in this location. So you'll be seeing more about that probably in the early part of the next calendar year. 1,000 Steps, this is our last beach access. And it could be a place for the site visit on August 11th, or feel free to head to the beach and see for yourself. These steps were constructed in 1924. So as you can imagine, there wasn't a whole lot around these steps. They chose a really good place because that's where water came down anyway. It's a natural seep. Unfortunately, over time, the concrete's degraded. These are actual drainage wells on either side of the steps to try to mitigate that. You can see there's also a storm drain here. You can see sort of the green moss. But there is development surrounding the steps now, and there are roads, there are housing tracks, everything has changed. We've wanted to address these steps for a really long time. I think they've been in the capital program for a good decade, if not longer. But it's always been one of those, it's lower priority because we wanted to maintain the steps at Shoreline Park, and then we wanted to redo the steps at Mesa Lane since they were at either ends of the city beach. City Council approved $200,000 in funding to start sort of the engineering, design, permitting analysis. This will be a tricky one. It's not necessarily a location where we would look at removing and replacing, so we'll have to come up with some sort of engineering solution. And it's also very much impacted by storm surge and will likely be very impacted by sea level rise. So we'll have to take that into consideration. But we're hopeful we'll come up with a design because the state of California and city value people's access to the beach, and this is a public access. We'll be working on that, and you'll see that probably sometime in winter or early spring, some more information on this project. Looking ahead to the next 6-year CIP, and let me just step back and say, we have a lot on the books right now. We just hired an associate planner, Justin Van Mullum, who's working on these projects. We have other staff, Kevin Strasberg, Kathy Fry, myself, Santos Escobar, Ken Brown. We're all working on these projects. Rich Hanna's involved as it relates to recreation and aquatics. But we also have other things we're also working on. So one of the things we're balancing is how do we keep everything moving? And then how do we really take advantage of looking ahead and what are our key considerations? Because our goals really are to, now that we're in a position, is really plan bigger than we've ever been able to plan before. And move projects forward in ways that we haven't been able to move projects forward. We have ongoing deferred maintenance and safety needs. We have community demand for us to look at new ways to purpose our parks and recreation facilities. There is the potential for increased funding, either through general fund revenue as it continues to grow, and the City Council has a new policy where funds left over at the end of a fiscal year, half of them get focused into capital, and the department's been a great beneficiary of those funds. If that continues, there will be more funds. And there may be other sources. The City Council's engaging in a community dialogue to determine what the public desires are for city infrastructure, which includes parks and recreation, and that may lead to other sources. There aren't a lot of grant funds out there, and I know that's always a question everyone asks. There might be in the future, I suppose, if there's another bond act at the state level. The focus is most likely to be on water, though, as my anticipation, and drought-related expenses rather than building parks and recreation infrastructure. That could change. So with that, when we think about developing the new CIP, it's both what do we still need to do over the next 2 years, and then really how are we looking forward into the future. And just as a quick revision, we've had parks for more than 100 years, and so that speaks to our constant need to reinvest in our existing resources. Similarly with recreation buildings, we're doing the 2 major recreation buildings. One's done, and we're working on the other. But today we have over 57 parks, beaches, ball fields, pools, tennis courts. I mean, what we had in 1902 versus what we have today, we have quite a significant inventory of facilities that still need our attention, that still need reinvestment. And as part of that, looking at how we renovate and maintain what we have to enhance our services. At the same time, balancing that with preserving our heritage and our resources, because if we were to change the way something's used, what are we losing as a result of that? So there's certain places in our parks that we wouldn't do something because it's Alameda Park or because it's Alice Keck Park Memorial Garden. But we do also need to anticipate new trends. We have more people coming forward saying adult fitness is important, outdoor program fitness is important. I'd like to have a place for my dog to be off leash in an enclosed area. Where can I do that? We always need more sports fields for youth, and certainly adults can benefit from those as well. The type of recreation activities we offer. We have 1 skate park. Should we have 2 skate parks? Our ball fields, should we be looking at artificial turf as opposed to grass, and what are the ramifications of that? And then how are the demographics changing over time? We see increasing infill development in the downtown core. Should we be looking at renovating, redesigning, building a new facility to meet the needs of more people who are living down there? Similarly, sort of the north side of town, Mackenzie Park. As we see things changing there, should we be focusing on looking at recreation opportunities in that location? And then balancing with what else is offered in the community, because we're just one part of a larger whole of individuals and organizations that are providing recreation services. And then keeping in mind regulatory requirements, health requirements, safety requirements, and then environmental requirements. As we continue to grow and change, what are the open spaces that we want to try to preserve, enhance, protect? Are there other open spaces that, and we're not really in a position to buy anything right now, that might at some point in the future be important to the city's inventory? The reason why we have what we have today in Santa Barbara is because so many people either gave their property or gave funds or had the vision to acquire it over time. It could be that we're in that same position today, thinking ahead for the next 30 to 50 years. The 6-year CIP is just a teeny tiny slice of that pie, but it's an opportunity for us to look forward. And key to that is actually planning that, as opposed to thinking, oh, X, Y, anything could happen. In our last 2-year cycle, we proposed that redoing our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And we bring that up today because that can become the umbrella for things that go forward over the next 30 years. At the same time, we're still doing ground level projects because we still need to keep addressing the needs, identifying trends. But it would provide an opportunity to establish a community vision, establish our priorities, guide decision making, and then begin to build on our funding needs. So that's one of the recommendations we'll be bringing forward to you. And as you think and discuss opportunities and needs in the community, a master plan could be a way to build that into the future. Maybe it couldn't happen in the next 2 years, but if that's really where we want to arrive at in 10 years or 20 years, what's the tool we use to help us get there? So we bring that up just for you to think about today, and then also as we further discuss projects and programs and you're on your site tour. Next steps, as I mentioned, we need to draft our next 6-year CIP. We will have our commission site visit on October 11th, and part of today is to get some feedback from you so we can craft that site visit to be of most use to you, and then bring the CIP back to you on October 22nd. It'll look slightly different than what's in your packet today, not a lot, but it's our opportunity to begin establishing new programs, new projects. They can get inserted into this. It's not that this is the only document. We're just going to update what we have. We can add to it. It does go to the Planning Commission, and then ultimately it'll go to City Council in February. I believe it's February 2015. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, discussion.
Madam Chair, if I could add just a little bit of background, since much of the discussion that I'm going to reference took place when I don't think anyone other than Commissioner Longstreet was on the commission. But as you may know, the city has worked for the last probably 10 years trying to get an updated general plan. Early in the process, the Parks and Recreation Commission provided input to the Planning Commission on priorities for the community related to parks and recreation. And Chair Wiscombe, were you here for that early part? That's okay. Actually, as
I was here for the joint Planning Commission,
right.
Our commission meeting, yes.
So one of the recommendations, as the Planning Commission was struggling with how to incorporate park and recreation needs into their development review process, they saw and spoke to the need for Parks and Recreation to have an updated master plan. So as Ms. Zachary was talking about why it's important for the department, I wanted to just add that additional perspective of how that plan is used when it comes to planning for how the city will develop. And very specifically, they were very interested in looking to see how they could tie park and recreation related requirements to development opportunities in terms of improving quality of life for the people who would live, work, play in those environs. So that was a recommendation that was made, and so that's part of, we see the need for it, but that's another piece of why it's so important. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you, and it helps to understand why we really believe that it is important for us at this time. And the other thing I was just going to say is that it looks like for FY16, which is the budget that we will be developing and coming back to talk to you about in March, April, we will have probably at least $3 million in general fund dollars to allocate to through the city of general fund capital. That's a significant increase over the $250,000 to $500,000 that we've seen over the last 10 years. So this is really, we saw a substantial increase of funding for park and recreation needs over the last couple of years, especially last year, and it looks like the city will have even more opportunities to continue to invest in our infrastructure. So it's promising.
Thank you very much. Just as a clarification to new commissioners, FY16 that Ms. Rapp just referenced starts in 2015. June, and goes through to FY16. So whenever you see it references FY something, it's the latter part of that fiscal year. So, so we're almost there now to 2015 for FY 2016. So, okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation, Ms. Zachary, and Ms. Rapp, your comments. I think they're very helpful. And I'll open it up to the commission now. What we're here to do is to provide some input to the department on what we'd like to see and, what we want to see in the capital improvement program. So, Ms. Longstreet.
It's so nice to have things moving. Thank you, and I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate everything that you and all your staff have done, all of you. One of the things that really strikes home is the density we're seeing in the downtown core. And almost as we look at the development projects coming down the pike, it's from the freeway over to Milpas. So I see a need in that area for as we look at resources, that it would be helpful to almost, I know there were maps, but to have those maps available that have the density and the parks. So we have a relationship. I'd love to see one up in this room where the Planning Commission meets, and, maybe one up in the Gebhardt room so that the ABR and can see sort of what's happening as these projects come down the pike. I do see a strong need for a more open space. We're so excited about the Ortega Park or the Ortega Street Children's Park, and we're hitting 2 to 5 year olds. We've got so many projects down in that area, and I think we do need to tie open space to development somehow. We need to get that dog park in downtown in the north side. I would like to know, and I don't think we can answer this tonight, like, what does it take for us to put a fence up in a park and even on a trial basis start a dog park? And maybe that's something we can discuss when we have our site visit and we're looking at places. What would staff see as it being size-wise, and how big a deal it would be in some different areas? I think we definitely need a master plan. There's the piece on the park infrastructure safety program. We've had such good luck with the playground replacement program. I'd like to see us have a park infrastructure program that matches that. Yes, I know there's years we don't get to everything on it, but it's stated there when we don't have it, and City Council and everybody knows what we can't do. So, trash cans, park tables, water fountains, fences, all of that are just as important as turf and trees and plants to people. So those are some of the thoughts I have. I appreciate seeing all this and seeing so many projects starting to move, and the ability to have more staff to move them, because it doesn't matter how much you want them to happen if there's nobody to do the work. There's only 24 hours in a day. So thank you. I really do appreciate it.
Chair Wiscombe, if you wouldn't mind, could I just jump in on the dog park? Because there may be more dog park voices. We are actually in the process of doing a feasibility study of the potential to locate places for dogs off a leash in our existing parks, whether it's in an enclosed area or in an open space area. And so we are conducting that assessment. We anticipate that we'll actually have something to share with the Commission in March, where we are looking location by location. We're looking at current uses, potential to repurpose, because to put it in an existing park, you're repurposing that. So what aren't you going to do instead? And then coming up with a matrix, a way to look at the pros and the cons and hopefully come to some solutions. So we'll present that to you for your discussion, and then we anticipate that there'll be public discussion as well, people that will want to weigh in. Certainly the opportunity to get new parkland for something like that. We can add that to the mix. That's a little more hypothetical. So right now we're just looking at our existing park areas. So we're working on it. It won't won't be in time to get incorporated into the capital program, but we can incorporate it as a concept of the need to look at recreation trends over time, including, and talk about that as part of, as we look at renovation, redevelopment, new park development, taking into consideration that community desire as well.
Thank you for the clarification on that. I think a lot of us want to talk about the dog park. Okay. Other comments or Mr. Heaton? Yeah.
Just minor. Thank you for the presentation, and I think the master plan is a good idea and a way to incorporate such future planning as the dog park, idea. Also, I'd like to see some discussions or inclusion of energy efficiency in some of these retrofits. I hope that we're looking at those as we do them, but whether it be lighting, I mean, as far as adding solar where it makes sense, and solar lighting, sure, but just replacing fixtures as we're renovating restrooms or whatever they are, and our facilities to be more energy efficient.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brown?
I have a couple questions. Ms. Zachary, first of all, I was at the presentation at the bathhouse, and that was fabulous. I love all the things you guys are talking about doing. You did a really good job. And do I remember when you were talking about the East Beach playground, was that part of that whole project?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Brown, we included that in our project description, but we determined subsequent to that, when we began sort of the development review process, we've only been through sort of a preliminary review. We determined after that we could actually take that on a separate track and not wait for the building renovation. And when I say a separate track, I mean the permitting process for it. So because it's in the coastal zone, we need a coastal permit, or at least a determination of what permit would be required. And we thought we had to include it in the whole project description at that time, as well as do it separately, if that makes sense. And now we've determined we can actually just go ahead and do it, and we'll take it out of the project description.
And then also, when you were talking about the tennis courts and having more lights put in, or newer lights, are there a lot of requests for nighttime tennis? Are there a lot of people that want that?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Brown, Rich Hanna is still here, so I'm sure he can answer that question in more detail. Short answer is yes, and then it gives me an opportunity to segue back to Commissioner Heaton's comment about energy efficiency. We're actually quite fortunate in that it's been a priority of the city to convert a lot of our electric light fixtures to energy efficiency. We're obviously in compliance with Title 24, but we work with our facilities division of our Public Works Department, where they've prioritized areas in the city and our facilities in particular, whether it's lighting, whether it's a pump or a heating element at Los Baños, to swap things out and put more energy efficient fixtures in. So we've got, I think the city has a pretty solid program, and things get knocked off the list. They did the ball field lights, for example, at Cabrillo Ball Field last year. Dwight Murphy, I think, the year prior, and now we're working on Pershing Park. So that is something that's a high priority for the city.
Anyone else? Ms.
Chair
Clark?
Wiscombe and Commissioner Brown, just really quickly, nighttime tennis is an offering that we see a lot of demand for in this community. And when we went through the transition of the Las Positas tennis facility, which was lit, to Elings Park, we've seen an increased demand in the tennis time in the evening. So what I see in my observations when I travel around the tennis facilities here in our community is there's an early morning presence, kind of a quiet time in the middle part of the morning, and then it builds momentum in the afternoon, and we see a lot more increased play in the evenings. The municipal tennis facility is actually has all the electrical wiring run. We actually own poles and fixtures for that facility. It was just never installed. Part of the analysis now is that the best lighting to put in there, or has it improved so much in the last 10 years that we do something that's more energy efficient, but really increasing the amount of play that's there? And how do we meter that, and how do we charge for that to increase the amount of play? So currently at the municipal tennis facility, there's 6 courts are lit, and the proposal would be to increase that by double, which is included in the CIP project. So we've got, and I'm not entirely sure how many courts are at municipal right now, 12. So 50% of the courts are lit at that site, and then Pershing Park also has lit courts as well.
Okay.
I don't know if it's feasible or not, but this is just another question. Is there any opportunity for the community, like maybe construction companies, to come together and do some projects in the city where they would donate their time and maybe alleviate some of that cost? Or I don't know if that's feasible with the city or not.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Brown, technically it's feasible. It's not something that we've had a lot of experience with in terms of companies coming forward and wanting to do that type of work for us. There's still all of the legal and risk related issues that need to be addressed rather than just having a volunteer company come in and do something. So we have to work out all those details. So technically it's feasible, but then there's sort of the practical aspect of how do you make that happen and meet the city's requirements.
Ms. Clark.
Thanks, Jill. I liked what you said about incorporating dog parks, incorporating it as a concept into the general plan, but I'm wondering what that looks like. I don't know if you guys saw this letter from Heidi today. She wanted some kind of language in the general plan addressing dog parks.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Clark, I haven't sort of formulated this entirely. Right now, we could, for example, have a capital project that was develop a new dog park off-leash area in in any one of city park locations. I think it would be better if we were very specific about where we wanted to do it and why we wanted and how we would do it, because it's really identified not just the need, but actually how we'd actually carry the project forward. So rather than do that, we would put it as part of the discussion of our master plan and the community needs and how we would incorporate that as part of the master plan process. That doesn't stop us from, separate from the CIP and the master plan, we're continuing with our feasibility study. There may be recommendations that come out of that we then amend our capital program to say, oh, it's now a high priority to go work in this park to do X to provide dog access. Just because we have the CIP and this planning process doesn't mean we can't also be opportunistic as things change. And that happens to us. And we like to have that flexibility when feasible. If there's funding and community desire and we can fit it in, we try to be very responsive, and we would be responsive to the extent possible.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Clark, I think a similar project that started through the last capital project was, and I can't put my hands on it very quickly, but was the concept of artificial turf replacing our sports turf in some of our parks. So what's in there is a project that says, do the feasibility study and analysis and then some startup money. So something similar like that could go in as a project. But as Ms. Zachary said, it is very helpful in terms of projects to have them be a little bit more specific. But in fact, you can, if it were a priority for the commission, have a project that was worded in the way that Ms. Zachary was talking about, that is a little bit more specific and is a project that's very specific to dog parks.
And just a couple other things. You mentioned on, I think it's page 30 of the plan under Parks and Recreation Master Plan, a growing interest in skate parks. A dog park was mentioned as well. And I know that some of the teens in this town aren't completely satisfied with the existing skate park. They've gone in, they've amended it, and at least the rumors are that they've amended it, and people have had to rip out some teen construction in there. And I was wondering how along the line could an additional skate park be considered in the master plan? And the other need I don't see being addressed by this is for bikers, because bikers are going into the skate park and they're riding their BMX bikes. And I've been to at least 10 other communities in the past year and a half where there are side-by-side skate parks with BMX bike parks. So no one's breaking the law and the teens can equally recreate. And I was wondering if that will ever be a consideration in Santa Barbara.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Clark, you bring up really, really good points because we want to go from concept to reality. Part of the idea of the purpose of the master plan is to really vet what are those trends, what are those community needs, and actually spend the time to say, okay, where would we actually to do that? And the master plan would be the guiding document. That's not to say we couldn't say it's a priority and we want to go determine where we could develop a bike park, for example. We do need to take into consideration the broad diversity of recreation needs in the community and the fact that we only have 18.2 square miles and the city only has so many public acres. So part of what you're asking is actually a discussion we would have in the development of the plan itself. Is it a community priority? If it's a community priority, what are our options for actually locating something like that in Santa Barbara? And actually putting together a sort of the document that establishes how we would then move it forward versus just throwing we need a bike park in. And then everyone says, well, where are you going to put it? It's like, well, so you could do an individual analysis of 20 different projects, or you could develop a master plan that looks at all recreation and park needs and prioritizes them. We think that's a good way to go because then it allows us to really move forward with implementation rather than dealing with individual project ideas or individual recreation ideas because we'll spend a lot of time redoing the same thing over and over again. I don't know if that helps you, but if we were to get funded for a master plan development, we would initiate the community dialogue to actually determine, is this what people want? Yes, no. What would it look like? Why is it desired? Well, what we have is working somewhat, but we need more of it to be able to meet a broader diversity of community members. That's sort of the process to develop the plan. And I would just add, I'm always leery of hearing someone saying, oh, we're going to develop a plan because you're actually going to do anything. Concurrent with that, we also need to be doing things. So it's not just spending a whole bunch of time developing a plan, but actually beginning to answer some of those questions. So it's on a parallel track.
I would add to that conversation just that over the years, there have been 2 or 3 priorities that come up as themes by the Commission. So with the success of the skate park, immediately comments from commissioners over the years has been, we need another smaller mini skate park for younger kids, so not the big profile park that we have, but something smaller on a smaller scale in more neighborhood parks. So that has been the conversation. And similar the discussion that we've had about dog parks, and then there are a couple of other things that, come up in community discussions. I think one of the challenges for Santa Barbara as a community and how we are different from even our neighbors in Goleta and the county is that we have very developed parks that have a lot of historical relevance and significance in the community, which doesn't leave us with a lot of opportunities to look at reimagining our parks. That's why with staff, we get very excited when we think about the opportunity if the city were able to acquire the Army Reserve property at State and Las Positas. It's in the city's general plan to add that space as, to serve community park and recreation needs. And our thought is you scrape the park and you redesign. And that's the kind of opportunity where you really can look at it in a big picture, and it will help us to have the master plan to guide those discussions. But that's going to be, just that rare opportunity to look at something from that perspective. You saw how excited we were to add just a little teeny tiny pocket park. And that's nothing compared to what other opportunities that they have, where they're still, developing their lands and they have more recreation park opportunities. So your challenge as commissioners is to, in part of these discussions with the community, really talk about, well, where? And what would that really mean? And, and then, we have to kind of honor our history with some of these park areas. So, but that's the challenge. It doesn't mean we can't do it. It doesn't mean that it won't get done. It just means we have a greater challenge as a community identifying where we would do that. I am sure that in, 1980, if somebody had ever said, they're going to build a skate park down off at Cabrillo Boulevard in Chase Pond Park, you could have made a fortune on that bet. But it happened. It happened. So I think that's, for us, the challenge of thinking more creatively, reimagining some of our park areas, and the process that Ms. Zachary was talking about is really looking to see where do we have that flexibility to do things a little bit differently. So those are some of the challenges we have.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Ms. Clark? Or is that? Okay, good. Did you have anything? Okay. I'd just like to say, I think, I went through all the projects, and I mean, the list is huge. I mean, I wrote them all down. It's just enormous. So, there is just a really great need for parks and facilities master plan, I think, and it's exactly what Ms. Clark, you talked about, and Ms. Brown, you talked about, and Ms. Longstreet talked about. We need to have an assessment of what are our needs and our wants, what the community wants, and we need to have a document that really reflects the community needs, the community interests, and the priorities, and how we prioritize these needs. So I think that that's certainly top of my list. I'd like to see something, since we've taken over the landscape maintenance in the city, and I've got to, Santos isn't here, but I've got to commend Parks. They've done a great job. Bird Refuge, and I hear East Beach. I'm dying to get over there and see that, which I will do Friday because I'll bike by it. So, they just look fabulous. It's just really, really great. But I'd like to see something in similar to what we have for park restroom renovation, playground replacement program, park infrastructure safety program, the ongoing things that we have. I'd like to see something in there for landscape maintenance, because that is what everyone sees in our city, whether you're a community member or a visitor. It's one of your first impressions of our city is what our landscapes look like, our public landscapes. So I think that would be something really great to put in there to allocate some dollars to on a, and I don't think we do that now, do we? I know we have a budget for it, but I think allocation of that and then prioritizing what areas could be improved and would be really great. I'd also like to see us pursue artificial turf projects, particularly at Bonnet Park. I think that's a since it's really a very park poor area. We don't. Bonnet is kind of the only game in town there. I think it's that would be one of my priorities, to see us pursue that, and specifically at that location. Obviously, dog park. I'm glad we are doing a feasibility study. I hope that we can perhaps do something temporary somewhere in a location to see as a test case, to see how it works. I think it would go a long way in comforting members of the community that are dog owners that right now have to go, that live on the east sides, to go all the way over to Douglas Family Preserve for off leash. Let me see what else. Small things that I think are really important, and I think things that we have to look at. Carrillo Ballroom air conditioning. Specifically, this is a facility that provides us revenue, and to not have it air conditioned is, if it typically, I can't imagine what it was like this summer with all the hot weather we had, but that to me is something that should be a priority, and that's probably going to help us bring in more revenue because it's going to be more comfortable space to be in. So things like that are smaller projects, but that can help us generate some more revenue, I think are important. The play area at Muni Tennis is also a small project, and I know Councilmember White's working on that. But, small projects like that excite the community, excite us. I mean, look at the Bath Pocket Park or Ortega. I think it's called Ortega Street Pocket Park in here, but it is. I'll bet you on that. It's referred to as Ortega here. As I thought, what? Oh, that's yeah. So at any rate, but I think small projects like that really excite the community and really go a long way, give us a lot of bang for our buck. So I'd really like to see that pursued. And just on another note, economy of scale, there were two projects in there, obviously the Cabrillo Pavilion and Bathhouse renovation, and then there was the Cabrillo Pavilion landscape renovation. And I'm just hoping like economy of scale can maybe meld that all together so we're not piecing projects together. And my last comment is just on Cabrillo ball fields. I'm glad to see that. That's been a long time coming. I think that's a very important park for that part of the community, and I'll be very happy to see the final improvements made to the park since we've gone through so much there already. So. And I think that's it. I thought Ms. Longstreet's comment about the downtown core and density was very insightful. And I think we are in a position where the master plan would really help us, because we can be, as we couldn't several years ago, we can now be more visionary and be more optimistic about and dream bigger than, our dreams were really small several years ago, but we can start to look at that, and unless we have the master plan provides the structure to carry the visions through when the opportunities come up, if they're priorities. So that's all I'm going to say. But thank you very much for the presentation and for all the input, and Ms. Rapp for all your input too. Does anyone else have anything on this? Okay, and we'll look forward to seeing it back here. Okay. Agenda item number 7 is the fiscal year 2014 year-end performance measures summary report, and that's really in your packet to review. And does anyone have any questions on that or comments on that? Okay, I thought that the department. I did go through it. I thought it was pretty amazing considering the kind of unique challenges of the year that the departments faced, and with the drought that just takes staff time away from other things. And I thought the department really did a great job on their performance measures given the challenges that you've had. So, okay, with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.